Number 9. Emma Carey. In 2013, Australian woman Emma Carey was on a 3-month trip to Europe alongside her best friend. Less than a week into her visit, 20-year-old Carey decided to go skydiving in Switzerland. She and a professional took to the sky in a helicopter, but the tandem jump didn't go according to plan. It was determined that the instructor had waited too long to pull the cord, thus causing the main and reserve parachutes to be deployed at the same time. The lines from the 2 parachutes became tangled, wrapped around his neck and choked him unconscious. The pair crashed into the ground, with Carey taking the brunt of the impact as the instructor landed on top of her. When she tried to help him, the young woman realized she couldn't move her legs. Carey had suffered a shattered pelvis, cracked teeth, and her back was broken in 2 places. Because of the damage to her spinal cord, she became a paraplegic. Dubbed by the media as the girl who fell from the sky, she spent months in hospitals in Switzerland and Austria before returning to her home country. Even though she'd been told that she'd never walk again, Carey subsequently experienced a miraculous recovery. Within a year of the accident that almost ended her life, she regained partial movement in her legs. She still struggled with nerve and muscle damage, as well as bowel complications, which she openly talked about on social media to her numerous followers. Number 8. Ed Harney. In April of 2021, an elderly man from New Jersey suffered a fatal skydiving accident in Monroe County, Pennsylvania. 74-year-old Ed Harney was an experienced skydiver, and his equipment had recently been serviced. He jumped out of a plane operated by the Stroudsburg-based Sky's the Limit Center from an altitude of roughly 14,000 feet. At the time, he was accompanied by 3 other jumpers. Harney's main parachute opened, but at around 6,000 feet, he became separated from it. Harney plummeted into a wooded area from a height twice greater than that of the Burj Khalifa, the world's tallest man-made structure. He died on impact from what a coroner would later rule as multiple traumatic injuries. An official investigation has yet to determine the root cause of the accident and whether the responsibility rested with Harney or those who'd handled his equipment. In 2007, 2 other men, also in their 70s, died in a Sky's the Limit skydive after their parachutes became entangled and they fell about 75 feet to the ground. Number 7. Amy Begg. An experienced skydiver, South Carolina woman Amy Begg had performed hundreds of jumps before being certified as an instructor by Skydive Carolina. Known to her friends as Adventure Amy, she was the first woman to solo bike around the base camp of Everest. She enjoyed a number of outdoor activities such as kayaking and rock climbing, in addition to skydiving. In July of 2019, she took part in a group jump that went tragically wrong. Begg's equipment worked properly and she'd successfully deployed her parachute, but encountered problems upon landing. She'd reportedly initiated a low turn while being too close to the landing area and, unable to recover from the maneuver, crashed into the ground. She passed away at the scene from blunt force trauma. Number 6. Carl Doherty. In May of 2021, a 76-year-old skydiver died following a mid-air collision in Florida. At around 9:45 a.m., a Cessna Caravan BH took off from Skydive DeLand, carrying a group of 16 skydivers. Among them was 76-year-old Carl Doherty, who had decades of experience during which he performed roughly 20,000 jumps. After exiting the plane, Doherty and another skydiver collided in mid-air, with their parachutes fully deployed. Their lines got tangled, and while the second skydiver managed to break free and regain control, Doherty was knocked unconscious. His parachute got twisted and he went spiraling towards the ground. He landed hard in a parking lot and ultimately succumbed to his injuries. Number 5. Justin Swaggerty. In June of 2020, an aspiring pilot was killed in North Carolina following a brutal skydiving accident. 20-year-old Justin Swaggerty, originally from Florida, jumped out of a Skydive Carolina plane as it soared above Chester County. After an uneventful free fall and parachute deployment, Swaggerty was closing in on the landing area. Unfortunately, he missed the target and landed on the propeller of a plane that was on the ground near the hangar. He succumbed to his injuries at the scene. Swaggerty's death was one of several fatalities reported by Skydive Carolina in recent years, including Amy Begg's devastating hard landing and a fatal parachute malfunction in May of 2018. The company defended accusations of poor safety practices by pointing to the fact that the victims were all experienced skydivers who'd made their decisions as individuals and not under the guidance of its instructors. Number 4. Joan Murray. On September the 25th of 1999, bank executive Joan Murray narrowly survived a devastating skydiving fall. Her incredible survival story was, in no small part, attributed to her having been bitten by fire ants. Murray wasn't a novice, as she'd already completed about 35 jumps during training before September the 25th. However, on that day, approximately 45 seconds into her freefall, Murray found that the main parachute wouldn't deploy. The 45-year-old released the reserve, which initially slowed her descent, but she then started to spin with the lines of her parachute becoming tangled. At around 700 feet, the parachute deflated completely, and Murray was barreling towards the ground at roughly 80 miles per hour. The impact crushed the right side of her body in its entirety. She struck the ground so hard that her tooth fillings flew out. Doctors were initially certain that she wasn't going to survive and were amazed that she was still breathing during the course of their intervention. Then they noticed that numerous small red bumps covered her body. They were in fact roughly 200 fire ant bites. Murray had been bitten repeatedly after landing on their mound, in what doctors would later describe as a miracle. Their venom, called solanopsin, had stimulated her nervous system and kept her heart beating. After a 2-week-long coma, 17 blood transfusions and 20 reconstructive surgeries, Murray recovered. In 2001, she successfully completed her 37th skydive. Number 3. Gianna Triplicata. In July of 2020, a Georgia teenager and her instructor both died following a failed tandem skydive. 18-year-old Gianna Triplicata had recently graduated high school and hadn't experienced skydiving before. The jump was a bucket list item that she wanted to check off before going to university. Triplicata went up with her grandmother, and each was assisted by a professional instructor. Triplicata jumped in tandem with 35-year-old Nick Esposito. Her parents and siblings watched them from the ground. Triplicata's grandmother landed safely in view of the family, but something went tragically wrong with the teenager's parachute. After she and Esposito had exited the aircraft, the main parachute failed to open properly, and the reserve only partially deployed when they were at an extremely low altitude. They struck the ground and died on impact. A videographer who'd been recording the jump was unhurt and had captured Triplicata and Esposito's final moments. Today's topic was requested by Instagram follower Splupu and Kiara and Diving 19. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below, or follow us on Instagram and reach out to us there. Number 2. Stephen Hilder. On July the 4th of 2003, skydiver Stephen Hilder died under circumstances described as unique in British crime history. 20-year-old Hilder was taking part in a competition at England's Hibaldstow airfield alongside 2 members of his Black Rain team. Each of them had performed hundreds of jumps. Hilder fell to his death 13,000 feet after both his main and reserve parachutes failed to operate correctly. Due to the cloudy weather, the incident wasn't observed as it unfolded neither by the team's videographer nor by Hilder's companions. His crushed body was later found in a cornfield, where parachutists who missed the landing target often ended up. An investigation subsequently discovered evidence of expert-level tampering with his equipment. The risers, which are fabric connectors between the lines and the harness, had been deliberately cut. A search for a murderer ensued and lasted for nearly a year, during which Hilder's teammates were arrested but ultimately released without charge. Further examination revealed that only Hilder's DNA was present on the parachute, and fibers from the severed connectors were found on his body. The police concluded that he'd cut his own risers. However, Hilder's friends and family were baffled, as there had been no indication of him wanting to take his own life. A test on scissors found in the locked trunk of his car established them as the implement used to make the cuts. This aspect seemingly supported the initial hypotheses, but Hilder's keys had been left in the ignition, and a saboteur could have used gloves, thus explaining the lack of DNA outside of his own. In March of 2005, a coroner recorded an open verdict on the cause of his death. To learn more about team skydiving, check out Beyond the Thrill, a unique, eye-opening documentary about competitive skydiving teams of 4. It's a world that very few know about, and in which split-second decisions mean the difference between life and death. You can find it on Amazon, and a link to it is available in the description below. Number 1. Perris Valley Tragedy. One of the most tragic incidents to have occurred in the history of skydiving took place in 1992 at the Perris Valley Airport, about 70 miles from Los Angeles. A propeller-driven de Havilland DHC-6 Twin Otter aircraft was carrying 22 passengers, the majority of whom are skydivers, set to perform a mid-air ballet. There was only one person on board without any parachuting experience. The plane only rose 50 to 70 feet off the runway when it veered sharply and plunged its nose into the ground. First responders arrived to find a nightmarish scene. Moans and screams could be heard from inside the wreckage. The few survivors had been seated at the rear and only escaped with their lives because the impact was cushioned by the body of those at the front. One pilot was trapped in the fuselage, while the other's body lay sprawled on the ground next to the plane's cracked nose. One of the rescuers would later tell a media outlet, "I saw so many broken necks and backs and arms and legs." 16 passengers lost their lives while 6 others survived with severe injuries. One of them, Dan Brodsky Chenfield, spent 6 weeks in a coma with a collapsed lung, multiple fractures, and a broken neck. He went on to become a 6-time world champion skydiver and a motivational speaker, often referencing the accident that had almost claimed his life. An investigation revealed several factors that had contributed to the accident and the high death toll. The plane was running on contaminated fuel which had caused its engine to falter. Even an experienced pilot would have had trouble handling it under such conditions, but none of the pilots aboard had been formally trained in flying the de Havilland. Additionally, neither the pilots nor any of the skydivers had been wearing safety belts. Thanks for watching. Would you rather skydive with a company that has poor safety record or bungee jump from a 50-foot bridge with a homemade cord? Let us know in the comments section below.